There's a moment, a quiet, split-second choice you make when someone criticizes you, accuses you, or questions your value, your personality, or your intentions. And in that moment, most people do what they've been taught to do. They defend themselves. I didn't mean it. That's not what I was trying to say. You misunderstood me. I swear I'm not like that. It sounds honest, reasonable, even mature. But to Machiavelli, that's the moment you lose everything. Because the moment you defend yourself, you show that you're weak enough to feel like you have to. And in games of power, how people see you is everything. If they see you hesitate, they don't see a victim. They see someone bleeding. This is the harsh rule. Machiavelli knew before most, the person who defends himself puts himself below others. The one who stays silent makes the world defend him instead. Let's make this clear. Defending yourself almost never changes anyone's mind. What it actually does is take power away from you. When you try to explain yourself, you're playing by their rules. You're letting them set the stage. You're silently saying, you have the right to question me. And once they have that power, they get to control the story. Even if you're completely right, you still come across as guilty, because it's usually the weak who rush to explain themselves. The strong, they let the silence speak for them. They let the accusation hang in the air, untouched. Because they know the real move is this. Turn the focus back onto the other person. Make them question themselves. Make them look like the one who's too emotional. Make them seem obsessed, angry, unstable. Because usually, the one who speaks first loses control of the story. And Machiavelli understood whoever shapes the story wins the outcome. Most people defend themselves because they want others to understand them. They think that if they explain enough, repeat enough, or clarify enough, they'll finally be seen as innocent. But that idea comes from emotional weakness, not smart thinking. You don't really want people to understand. What you really want is control. Understanding is for therapy. Control is for power. And power doesn't come from people liking or getting you. It comes from fear, respect, and staying out of reach. So when someone calls you arrogant, cold, selfish, or manipulative, and your first reaction is, no, you don't understand, you've already lost, because now you're reacting. Now you're showing that you care. Now you've given them control. Think of the most powerful people you've ever met, not the loudest, not the most popular, the ones who used silence like it was a weapon, the ones who made you second-guess yourself with just a look, the ones who never showed fear or rushed to defend themselves. Let's go deeper. You walk into a room, someone throws shade, subtle or direct, maybe a jab at your success, your attitude, your past. Everyone turns to see what you'll say, and here's your move. Say nothing, no defense, no retaliation, no smirk, just calm, total stillness. In that moment, you are untouchable, because everyone in the room is now forced to ask, why didn't he react? Does he know something we don't? Is he above this? Did that attack just make him stronger? You just flipped the entire social frame, because people aren't watching the accusation, they're watching your response. And silence, when delivered with presence, speaks louder than any justification ever could. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't just study politics, he studied psychology, and he understood one thing better than anyone. Power isn't what you say, it's what people believe you could say, but choose not to. Now, here's the coldest move of all. Sometimes you don't just ignore the accusation, you invert it. Someone calls you manipulative, smile. Look past them and say, if that's how you see it, not defensive, not apologetic, just cool, neutral detachment. What happens? They scramble because they were hoping for a fight. They were hoping to watch you squirm. Instead, they're left holding their own weapon. That's when the guilt sets in on their side. They start wondering if they overstepped, if they embarrassed themselves, if they look insecure now. And guess what? They do. You just took the energy they threw at you and made them carry it without lifting a finger. There's a moment when silence becomes unbearable. Not for you, but for the one who expected a reaction. That's when the tables turn. They thought they were the accuser. Now they're exposed as the one begging for attention. And you just became something far more powerful than innocent. You became untouchable. Machiavelli understood something that most people will never grasp. Words are not to clarify truth, but to obscure it. And when someone attacks you, subtly or directly, they want you to fight the fog. They want to drown you in emotional explanation, because the more you explain, the less certain you appear. So instead, let them fill the silence. And what happens? They overplay, they repeat themselves. They start looking desperate, emotional, unstable. You said nothing, but now they're the one under judgment, because the crowd isn't listening to what's being said. They're watching who's calm and who's rattled. That's social power, and it doesn't come from being right. It comes from being untouchable. Let's say you're in a business meeting. Someone subtly undermines you, says, "I'm not sure that strategy is really thought through," or "he always has these bold ideas." They're looking for a reaction. They want you to bite. What do most people do? They lean forward. They explain. They prove. They clarify. They get nervous. The room smells it. But the Machiavellian operator, he leans back. He waits. Maybe even smirks. And if he speaks, it's not a defense. It's a redirect. "Let's hear your strategy." Then, now the attacker has to perform, and the room flips. Suddenly, they are being evaluated. They are under pressure because silence from the confident is accusation without words. It makes people feel small without you doing anything. In romantic or personal relationships, this is even more dangerous. Say your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." The average person will panic. They'll launch into explanations, reassurances, defenses, and in doing so, they validate the emotional frame. But the Machiavellian approach is different. You don't dismiss them. You don't argue. You let the weight of the accusation hang. You watch them feel their own drama, echo, in the space. Then with calm, you respond. "That's not how I see it." Short, grounded, no explanation, no justification. Now they feel uncertain. They question their own tone. They wonder if they were too reactive, because in that moment, you held power over what matters most, the emotional tempo, and whoever controls the tempo, controls the frame. There's a deeper tactic, and it's even colder. Don't just remain calm when accused. Disappear. Someone insults you. Don't reply. Don't respond. Don't acknowledge, but don't block them either. Let your absence sit like a mirror. Let them sit in the silence of being ignored. Here's where it gets elite. Instead of defending yourself when attacked, make their accusation look like a sign of weakness. Someone calls you arrogant. Strange that confidence makes people so uncomfortable. Someone says you're manipulative. Only people who can't be influenced say that. Someone calls you fake. Everyone says that when they stop getting what they want, you don't just deny the accusation. You make it their insecurity. And now they're the ones scrambling to defend themselves. It's not just a reversal. It's a power judo throw. You used their own emotional force and turned it into their public collapse. Machiavelli would call this the turn of the blade. Do not meet the sword with a shield. Let the attacker fall on his own blade. The world teaches you to defend your reputation, to explain yourself, to clear your name. But Machiavelli saw the trap. He knew that the moment you chase innocence, you admit guilt. So the true strategist never plays that game. Instead, he appears too composed to be shaken, too elevated to care, too clear on his position to explain it. And slowly, those who try to tear him down start looking unstable, reactive, jealous, weak. Because the more you defend, the more it looks like you need to. But the more you ignore, the more dangerous they assume you are. And that assumption is where power is born. Most people think power is about proving yourself, proving you're right, proving you're not what they say you are, proving you're better than their perception. But Machiavelli would smirk at this, because the second you try to prove anything, you've already declared the other person's judgment valid. And when you hand someone that validation, you hand them your leash. Here's what the Machiavellian does instead. Pause. Hold silence for just 2 seconds. Scan the room, not with aggression, but with quiet amusement. Then, and only if needed, offer something calm, precise, and dismissive. You seem emotional today, or interesting take, or nothing at all. Just a long, still gaze. What happens next is predictable. The attacker shifts. They fidget. They look for backup. They try to explain their joke. They feel the heat of the room shifting onto them, because your lack of reaction just told the room something louder than words ever could. You're not the one under judgment. They are. In the digital arena, things escalate even faster. Comments, posts, call-outs, DMs, people trying to bait you into reacting. Here's the truth. Machiavelli would burn into your mind in the court of public opinion. Silence speaks guilt, unless your silence commands fear. So here's the tactic. When you're attacked online, don't defend, don't explain, distort. You don't address the claim. You redirect the energy back into the crowd. Example, someone says you're toxic or manipulative. Instead of posting a tearful defense or long clarification, you post, "People always call you dangerous when they can't control you." What just happened? You didn't defend. You reframed the accusation into a badge of power. Now they look bitter. You look unfazed. And the audience, they begin to question who's really in control. That's not damage control. That's narrative dominance. Let's get even more surgical. There are 3 tools you can use instead of defending yourself. Silence, the default, cold, powerful, leaves them exposed. Deflection, reframe the narrative without acknowledging the jab. Precision cuts, short, sharp truths that end the game immediately. Examples. Someone says, "You're full of yourself." You respond, "Confidence upsets the insecure." They say you're fake. You respond, "I don't owe you authenticity." They say, "You think you're better than everyone." You respond, "No, I just don't think like everyone." These aren't defenses. They're status assertions. They don't say, "I'm not guilty." They say, "You can't touch me." And that's the core. The Machiavellian never begs to be seen as good. He dares people to see him as bad, and walks taller for it. When you refuse to defend yourself, something strange happens to your enemies. They become unhinged because they expected a battle, and instead they're swinging at smoke. They start escalating. They push harder. They get more dramatic. They expose more of their insecurity. And the more they do, the more you rise in the eyes of others. Why? Because you've made them perform their own collapse. And that's the Machiavellian endgame. You don't destroy your enemies. You let their obsession with you destroy them. You think being misunderstood is dangerous, but being predictable is far worse. The misunderstood man has mystery. The predictable man is easy to manipulate. People who are always trying to clear things up are seen as desperate. People who remain calmly misunderstood, they are feared. Machiavelli knew this. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But even more, it's better to be confusing than predictable, because the confused man is cautious. He watches you. He doesn't act rashly. And that means you control the field. Let's crush the final illusion. You don't need a good reputation to win. You need a strong one. The man with a good reputation is expected to be clean, soft, agreeable. The man with a strong reputation, he's not always liked, he's not always trusted, but no one dares move against him casually. That's what happens when you never defend yourself. Your reputation becomes not about what people believe, but what they fear you'll do next. That's how you flip the power. You stop fighting for approval, and instead, you create an aura that makes people cautious. Because even your silence feels like a decision, and every move you don't make becomes a move in their mind. The final evolution is not silence, Its aura, a presence so composed, so secure, so far above the petty noise that accusations simply evaporate before they land. And this doesn't come from being emotionless. It comes from being unbothered by design. Because once you've trained yourself not to defend, not to explain, not to seek validation, you cross a line where your existence becomes the defense. And that's when power becomes effortless. Think about the few people in life who never explain themselves. They don't post long rants. They don't correct the record. They don't argue with critics. And yet people respect them more. Why? Because silence in the face of accusation creates myth. It invites interpretation. And the human mind, when left without an explanation, fills the void with strength. People assume you must be dangerous. You must know something they don't. You must be so secure in who you are that you don't even blink when challenged. And that assumption, that's what makes people follow you. Machiavelli didn't care about being good. He cared about being in control. And the one who never defends is always in control of perception, even when surrounded by lies. Here's the paradox. The more you explain yourself, the more alone you look, because no one feels the need to step in when you're already arguing on your own behalf. But if you remain calm, if you stand silent, unfazed, people start to feel the urge to defend you. They say, "That was uncalled for. He didn't deserve that. Why are you coming after him? He didn't even respond, and you're still pushing." Suddenly, they become your shield. And what's better than defending yourself? Letting others do it for you without asking. That's Machiavellian leverage. Let the crowd argue your case while you remain above the noise. Now you're not just respected, you're elevated. It doesn't happen overnight. You build it like a fortress, stone by stone, by acting with restraint, by choosing stillness over reaction, by never explaining more than you must. Start here. Never correct insults that are clearly meant to provoke. Let them speak. Let them echo. Your silence tells the room that the insult didn't even register on your radar. Respond to indirect shots with calm confusion, not offense. Is that how you see it? Said with total serenity. It dismantles the emotional energy behind their attack. Use short closing phrases instead of defenses. Noted. Okay, think what you like. Time will tell. Each one closes the door. It doesn't invite more debate. It ends the scene. Study how you hold your face, your body, your gaze. The Machiavellian never twitches, flinches, or tenses. Stillness is his armor. And the more still you are when others lose control, the more your power expands silently. When people don't know how to get a reaction out of you, they start to fear you because now you're unpredictable. Not wild, just unreadable. You become like a mirror, showing them their own emotional weakness instead of showing any of your own. Machiavelli would put it this way. The most dangerous person isn't set the one who strikes first. It sets the one who never needs to strike at all. You still eventually reach a point where the attacks stop. Not because you fought back, but because people realize they still lose before even trying. Just your presence sends a message. I don't defend myself. I let others break themselves trying to get to me. There's a big difference between being strong and being untouchable. Strength still flinches, still reacts, still gets emotional, even if it pushes back. But being untouchable, that means not even reacting. That's the ideal Machiavelli had in mind. You don't win by arguing. You win by making sure the argument never even starts, because you don't need to explain yourself. When you stop defending yourself, people stop treating you like someone who needs to prove anything. You rise above their judgment. You're no longer part of their little system of approval and opinions. Now the only judgment that matters is your own. From here on, you don't live on the defensive. You live with intention. You define how others see you. You define your attitude. You define your silence. And people notice. They feel the confidence in your eyes, the calm way you carry yourself, and the quiet danger behind your stillness. You're not just holding back anymore, you're taking charge. And when that happens, the energy in the room changes. People talk less. Your critics grow quiet. Your name carries weight, not because you argued for it, but because you never had to. Not defending yourself doesn't mean staying silent forever. It means you only speak when it changes the balance of power. When you talk, it should feel like a move, not a reaction.